Applicants with requests before the DDRC are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time should include, but is not limited to, an overview of the project, case history, and any pertinent meetings held regarding the request. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant, such as attorneys, engineers, and architects. This time limit does not include any questions to ask by the DDRC or staff regarding requests. Sorry, guys, we're having some technical issues here today, so yes. Members of the general public are given the opportunity to address their concerns in intervals of 2 minutes. Applicants may have 5 minutes to respond. Staff has a timer and will make presenters aware of when their time has expired. Are there any changes to the agenda?
We've had 2 changes to the agenda. Both are under the regular agenda. 1108 Queen Street, a request for construction of a single-family home in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area, Area A, has been deferred, as has 2331 Gadsden Street, request for design approval for construction of an accessory structure in the Elmwood Park Architectural Conservation District.
The DDRC uses the consent agenda to approve non-controversial or routine matters by a single motion and vote. If a member of the DDRC or the general public wants to discuss an item on the consent agenda, that item is removed from the consent agenda and considered during the meeting. The DDRC then approves the remaining consent agenda items. Will staff please read the consent agenda?
Certainly. The first is 1637, 1639 Enery Avenue. This is a request for preliminary certification of the Bailey Bill in the Wales Garden Architectural Conservation District. The second is 2214 Wallace Street, request for preliminary certification of the Bailey Bill also in the Cottontown Bellevue Architectural Conservation District. 2408 Stark Street, request for design approval for construction of a single-family home in the Old Shandon Lower Waverly Protection Area, Area A. And 2101 Gervais Street, request for preliminary certification of the Bailey Bill in the Waverly Protection Area.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Is there anyone from the DDRC that would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda? Okay. With that, I'll open up for a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda and also the August minutes.
I'll move for approval of the August minutes and all 4 items on the consent agenda, including all the staff recommendations.
Second.
Ms. Jaco?
Yes.
Mr. Ledecker?
Yes.
Mr. McKenzie?
Yes.
Mr. Salibi?
Yes.
Mr. Shelton?
Yes.
And Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes. And Mr. Greenberg? Yes. Thank you. Motion passes.
Right. So we do not have any regular agenda this time, so we'll move straight to other business.
So we have a short presentation today that Ms. Walling is going to give. We've been talking for a little bit about doing some short presentations every couple of months when our agenda is light. These will be educational presentations, and these are items that staff routinely sees and has to deal with and work with and reviews, if you will. So we wanted to make sure that y'all were fully informed on these items. So today it's going to be about removing paint from brick, which is, as you know, a hot topic item.
All right, exciting.
Yeah, so largely about brick in general, and we will talk about paint removal too. All right, so I'm not going to go into what a brick is because hopefully y'all know what that is. But generally speaking, when we're looking at a brick building, exterior bricks are fired in a kiln. They have a protective exterior coating on the brick, which makes it a hard, durable material. Inside the brick is going to be a little softer because it's not getting the direct heat from the kiln. Mortar, as I'm sure y'all have probably heard us say before, is a sacrificial element on a brick building. It is meant to move with the building as the building expands, contracts, freezes, thaws, and lets water vapor in and out. So that will go through the mortar. So it's totally normal, what you see here, to have mortar deteriorated. It's probably some deferred maintenance. It shouldn't be quite that deteriorated. But the parts of the mortar, the brick, they have to work together. They have to be compatible, which means they also both have to move. So what a lot of people don't really understand when they're patching mortar, doing mortar patches, is that the composition of the mortar is incredibly important. If the mortar is too hard, it will result in bricks breaking or spalling. We'll get into that a little bit too. And if the mortar is too soft, it's just going to crumble away. So, you know, there are literal classes that we take in school about mortar composition and breaking it down. And there are companies that you send them a sample and they tell you exactly what the mortar is made of. So you can recreate it and properly repoint your historic building. You've probably also heard us say that buildings need to breathe. All historic buildings, not just masonry, were made to let moisture in, let the moisture out, and that's through water vapor going in and out of the building, not necessarily air. So we're not talking about a leaky building. We're not talking about air coming through holes and gaps in your windows. But the materials themselves let the water in, and then they have to have a way to let the water vapor out. So when you mess with the exterior coating of a building, you are interrupting that natural process. Oh my God. Okay, so who knows what the root of all evil is when it comes to a historic building? Or any building, really? Water, that's right. Water is the cause of most issues you see with buildings, especially brick. Because like I said, the water comes into the building, it has to find a way out. And so you would think, you know, waterproofing the outside of the building might be a good idea because if water can't get in, then it doesn't need to come out, right? But water will always find a way. That is number one preservation tip there. Water will always find a way. It can come through the roof, it can be absorbed up through the ground, come from interior humidity, who knows, but it finds a way into the building. And if it gets trapped trying to get out of the brick or the mortar, it's going to cause issues. So what we see a lot in historic preservation, and we've seen it through the years, learning from past people's mistakes is pretty normal. So there will be some new great material. You want to use it on your building, and it's going to make your building waterproof. It's going to make your building stronger. It's going to make it last forever. You saw this a lot in historic buildings when it came to the introduction of Portland cement. So it was it's an old material. They've been using it for quite a while, but it's very hard material, and it does not allow for the water flow. So I've seen in Charleston, for example, someone back in the day, they said, oh, this building, this wall is falling down. We need to make sure it's stronger. So they parge the exterior, which is just adding kind of a small skim coat of cement to the surface of the brick. And, you know, it's great, whatever. And then 50 years later, all that's left is that cement, you know, little piece of parged exterior coating, and all the brick behind it is crumbled away. So that's kind of extreme, but we do see things like that. So you can see here, someone patched a missing brick with cement. It may not be causing issues now. I mean, you can see there is some issues, but down the road, it very well could. So that's patching too, and then incompatible mortar. So like I said, the mortar and the brick have to work together. They both have to expand and contract. And like the mortar is the sacrificial element. So when the brick starts moving around, the mortar can get out a little bit. Sorry, I'm doing some. So using incompatible mortar is an issue that we see a lot. A lot of times it's also really unsightly. So people can see that issue and be like, this is ugly. People are just slapping cement on the building, not doing correct pointing. But more than just ugly, it can cause damage because it's a different hardness than the brick that it's associated with. Waterproofing too, I kind of talked about this. Waterproofing and water repellents, I think we've seen too. Preservationists are always going to be hesitant with any new great technology it's going to let the building breathe, it's going to do all the things it needs to do, because we've heard those things before, and we've heard the horror stories, and we've seen them. So it's best just to let the building function like it's supposed to, and let it breathe. As I was saying, even with water repellents, you don't know. I mean, it may cause like a film on the building. It could end up trapping some of the water in there, and it might just be a brick here or there, but that's still an issue. So we see all those issues a lot. And obviously the big one for us that y'all see a lot is painting brick, which we do not normally recommend. So these are just some pictures I've taken over the years of bricks with issues. And it's not necessarily anyone doing anything wrong. Sometimes I've seen it where bricks are just not good. They're soft. In this case, there probably have been some mortar patches that are not quite compatible with the brick. They trapped water. And so this is called spalling. It's when the outer tough coat that's been fired of the brick crumbles away, and then inside the wall, it just turns into dust. So you can see there, when you see a wall where you just have the mortar outline of where the brick is supposed to go, that's pretty good indication that that mortar is too hard for that brick, because it's the last thing that's standing and the brick is all gone. So that's also a pretty extreme example. You don't see that on houses. This is the Bull Street wall. So that's very, very, very old brick that you see has completely spalled away. Now, it doesn't mean the wall is going to fall down, but because it's a thick wall, but it does need attention. And paint. So this again is an old building that's been painted for years and years. The paint is failing in a number of ways related to water. So when paint starts bubbling, flaking, that's all water getting trapped underneath it between, the brick and the paint. It has nowhere to go, so it just sits in that brick until the brick just decides to bust out. So you can see here too, there's a lot of missing mortar that they also just kind of painted over. So paint is not a solution for missing mortar. The bricks still need that mortar for when it moves. So there's a lot of issues going on here, but you can see the brick just crumbles away. And this may have taken, 30 years to happen, but it happened. Two, all of what I'm saying today, I'm focusing on brick because that's what we see most, but most of it's pretty applicable to any type of masonry construction. The issues related to it, as far as, is it going to crack? Is it going to delaminate? Is it going to crumble? May be specific to that material. So for instance, with certain stones, we'll see the delamination where just layers on the outside start peeling off. This here is concrete bricks that has been painted over, and it's hard to tell, but in touching those concrete bricks, it's just crumbling away to the touch. So a lot of moisture's been trapped there over the years, and underneath it's starting to crumble, so it becomes an issue. Again, maybe after 30 years, but the building's still there and people want to use it. It needs to be in good shape and functioning. So paint removal. It is possible. It is possible to remove paint from brick. It is not easy. It is time consuming. And the longer the paint has been on the brick, probably, not always, but it's going to be harder to get off. So if there's, you see things in preservation about graffiti on buildings, you can normally get that off pretty quickly, and once you notice it, you want that off. But the paint that's been sitting there for 20 years may be a little bit harder to get off. So we always say use the gentlest means possible. You might have seen that in our evaluation before. If you're going to clean, if you're going to do this or that, it needs to be the gentlest means possible. That does not mean it's going to be fast. That does not mean it's going to be easy. A lot of times, anything with a good old building, you have to take your time with it and to do it right. So one thing, preservationists have seen throughout the years, early on, I don't even know why you would do this, but the sandblasting, right? Completely damaging, almost any material. It's gonna poke little holes in everything. But with brick, especially, you're chipping away at that hard exterior coating that is there for a reason. It's the outside of the brick, it needs to stay intact to protect the building. So that was one, I don't know, I've never seen someone do that, but you have. In your experience, in your years of work, you've seen it, and I've seen buildings in the aftermath of that. So, and our guidelines normally say, unless it's for protective reasons and things like that, sometimes when you knock off the exterior coat of a brick, it has nothing to protect it. You might have to do something like paint it or, I don't know, parge it, stucco, some other type of treatment, because it's just gonna keep crumbling and crumbling away. So most of what we see, there are a lot of, like I said, new technologies out there for removing brick. I've heard tons of stuff. There's like one where it's like sponges, like little tiny pieces of sponge, it like throws at the brick to get the paint off. But tried and true methods that we use around here a lot are going to be more chemical. So these can be rolled onto the building, painted onto the building, or sprayed onto the building. And what we always recommend is doing test panels. So you can see in this image here where they did test panels of 4 different products with 4 different results. And what you see on this building may not necessarily work on another building. The product is going to react to the brick in different ways with different brick and different buildings and conditions. So, it's not like if peel away works here, you're always going to be using that. Not necessarily. You still need to do test panels to see what's going to work best. It's labor intensive. You have to add layers. Most of the time they have a layer of the, it's kind of thick, gooey, anybody who's ever used, it's this, same consistency of what you see with paint removal that you would use on wood. So it's gonna stick to the surface and stay vertical, not just run off. And a lot of times what you'll see is they have to do kind of, paper, or not paper, but like film, like a
Yeah,
word.
it's paper that you lay across, that's
Yeah, so you lay it over it, it holds it against the building, kind of like a poultice, and works at getting that paint off. You take that down. Sometimes you have to use a neutralizer because it's, eating away at the paint. You don't want it to keep eating away at the building. And see what you get. You can use soft brushes to kind of get in. It's not, may not come all the way off. In some cases, I'll show you a picture later, but it, and it may have to be done multiple times. And so, a lot of people just want it one and done and just be able to get it done quickly. But like I said, everything with historic buildings takes a little time, takes a little thought, and sometimes it takes creativity. But we have had a number of prominent buildings in Columbia that were painted for years. I believe this is, I don't know what building this is.
it might be the old Starbucks on Gervais.
It may be, yeah, maybe the old Starbucks on Gervais, which I think is Cava now. That building was painted for years, and they were able to take the paint off. It's a beautiful building. More recently, we have the laundry building on the Bull Street District, and I'll show you a picture of that. Painted, the paint didn't even look good. It was flaking. Obviously, no one was taking care of that building for a while. But the new owner wanted to take all of that off, be able to show the brick and show how beautiful the building is. And it looks great now. So he used one of these chemical peels, basically, on the building to be able to take the paint off. So this is the laundry building, what I was just talking about. Looks kind of sad. But obviously had been painted for years. In parts, you can see mortar loss. You can see where the bricks are kind of a little bit softer coming through the brick color, through the paint, where the paint is worn off. And then today, so it's not perfect, but those of us who love historic buildings don't expect them to be perfect. They have their patina, but the owner of this building probably didn't want it to be perfect, just knowing him. They probably could have gone back in with brushes, a couple more layers in certain places to get that more off. But it shows the history. But it's a beautiful example of how you can really change the building by removing those later layers. So white to the red brick being exposed again. So that's all I have. Amy, did you want to add anything? Okay. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, that was very informative. I appreciate it. Any comments?
Got a question.
So when we're considering an application requesting a brick, and their reason is that the brick is damaged and they need to use paint as a protective measure, is the most important thing to look for. So the order might not look terrible, but that's not a consideration we're in. But if that exterior layer of brick is removed, that's probably, I guess, the most material damage warranting.
Yes and no. So I've seen some buildings where like one brick here and one brick there and one brick there is spalling or missing. Those can be dug out, a new brick put in with mortar around it. So in that case, it would be more of a repair piece by piece. I've yet to come across a building that like the entire outside was compromised, but say for instance, the building was sandblasted, like I said, we don't allow that, but if someone happened to do it, yes, there may need to be some type of protective coating put on that.
And I will say that when people come to us with problems like, dampness in the house or something like that. And a lot of times people do propose the waterproofing. The first thing we do is go in and look at the building overall to see where is the water coming in. We have to sort of be investigators into the building and look at where the possible problems really are. A lot of times they're not actually where people think that they are. So it just takes some experience and some knowledge about how buildings are put together to kind of figure out where those issues might be. So it's very interesting, actually.
I have a quick follow-up question as well. Do you differentiate between brick when it's like multi-width, when it's structural as well, and when there's an air cavity behind it in terms of allowing it to vent?
As far as like what we allow for painting,
Right, if there's a painting question and they want to make the case that it's not going to deteriorate the brick because there's an air barrier behind it and there's brick vents, would you consider that?
well, I mean, most of the walls we look at are going to be brick veneer walls, so there is going to be a cavity behind it. But it just goes back to the brick itself can trap moisture. And so we don't want to compromise that in any way. It needs to come out of the building, not into the building. So you want the path out of the building to be clear for any type of water vapor to get out.
Charles, did you have some comments?
Yeah, so there are a lot of products and a lot of really good reputable companies that have products just for cleaning brick. And a lot of times, even with the paint removal, you don't want to use a water pressure that's too hard. I think generally it's 300 PSI or less. So, but there are products specifically for cleaning brick that can be purchased through different companies. Yeah, and I mean, there are some that are environmentally friendly, right? But those companies, we've worked with one before, they actually have a preservationist on staff that can guide you through what's the right product for your building and what substrate do you have and what are the issues that you're seeing and what's the best way to clean that. So yeah, there's a lot of products out there.
Yeah, we have to, when we're looking at buildings and cleaning methods, a lot of times we have to look at the individual chemicals in the spec sheets to figure out exactly what they're using and if it's going to actually damage the building in spite of what people say their products will do. So, yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you, staff. That was very interesting. Yeah. Any other business, all issues? Is that it? Okay. All right, then just looking for a motion to adjourn.